Hello, and welcome to Thursdays at the Museum. Thank you so much for joining us for today's program. I'm Christine Mark, the DIA's Manager of Volunteer Development. Today, we will be talking about Part 2, the new Black Vanguard, Photography Between Art and Fashion. We welcome presenters Tana Jenkins, Henney, Pamala May, and Sharon Harrell. Pamala is new to Thursdays at the Museum. This is her second Thursday now, and she's a photographer, a writer, and an art collector. And she says the DIA is her happy place. She's been a volunteer at the museum for 5 years. We also welcome our new presenter, Sharon Harrell. Sharon is DIA staff working in community engagement and with today's producer, Ian Rapnicki. We encourage you to ask questions during the presentation. You can either type them into Facebook or leave a comment on your YouTube page. I will be moderating the Q&A box for the presenters and reading questions on screen. The event is being recorded, so you can watch it again either on YouTube or our Facebook page. Without further ado, I introduce you to Sharon Harrell.
Thank you, Christine, and thank you for joining this exciting presentation. Today, the DIA proudly presents part 2 of our virtual live tour of one of its current special exhibitions entitled The New Black Vanguard, Photography Between Art and Fashion. This extraordinary and thought-provoking exhibition is on display through April 17th in the Swartz Galleries of Prints and Drawings, located on the first floor of the museum. The exhibition is in association with the nonprofit foundation Aperture. The curator of the exhibition is critic and writer Antoine Sargent. The New Black Vanguard is a global movement of young photographers or image makers working in Africa or across the African diaspora who create contemporary portrayals of Black life. When we use the phrase African diaspora in this exhibition, it refers to the diverse individuals and groups living outside of Africa who have been dispersed through either choice or force. So why this title? The New Black Vanguard, Photography Between Art and Fashion. Fashion is image. Fashion photos that have appeared over the last century in print and social media have set the standard for what is beautiful and ideal, influencing our collective tastes and understandings of identity. These images have supplied the mainstream consciousness with both positive and negative representations of beauty and the body. As the exhibition curator, Antoine Sargent, states about fashion images, viewed critically, they offer a means of cultural reflection, tracking changes in societal attitudes, politics, sexuality, social and economic structures, and the value that we ascribe to expressions of identity. Fashion images are aspirational. People feel affirmed or alienated by the likenesses that stare back at them. Historically, white culture, or the white gaze, which promoted the attributes of white skin, thin European body types, and traditional gender roles and morals, has controlled these standards. Building on the progress of Black intellectuals and artists before them in the late 1950s and early 1960s, Black artists challenged the standard of beauty as limited to thin white models and created a movement that promoted the beauty of African skin, hair, and body types, which they named Black is Beautiful. They understood that beauty and image are power. The DIA's recently completed special exhibition of Kwame Braithwaite's photographs entitled Black is Beautiful focus on that movement. The vibrant portraits and conceptual images of the young artists of the New Black Vanguard fuse the genres of art and fashion photography in ways that break down long-established boundaries. From New York to Lagos, Nigeria, these artists present fresh and diverse perspectives on photography and notions of race, beauty, gender, and power. Their work seeks to challenge the idea of Blackness and homogeneous and Blackness. I'm sorry. Their work seeks to challenge the idea that Blackness is homogeneous, bringing together images from lifestyle magazines, ad campaigns, museums, and social media. This exhibition celebrates Black creativity and cross-pollination between art, fashion, and culture in constructing an image. The exhibition is large with over 100 photographs, several videos, album jackets, and magazine covers. The exhibition features over 15 young photographers or image makers, along with 20 emerging image makers, including some talented Detroit artists. Now I'll turn it over to our first presenter, Tara, and then Pamela and Ray.
Hey, hi everybody.
Hi, Tana.
Hi, Tana. Hi, everybody.
I'm excited to be with you, Pamela and Tana. This is going to be great.
I'm here.
Same here.
Take it away, Tana.
Okay, guys. Oh, AWOL Erziku. I had so much fun preparing for this. And I have to say, these younger artists, they're like all over social media. And so they're all over the internet. So you can find all these really great interviews that they've done where they talk about their art. And they're so flippin' smart and so conceptual. And what they have to say about their art is so layered and so full of meaning. So I'm going to try to distill some of it. I promise I will not get everything. And I encourage everyone to go and do their independent research after they finish our fantastic video and after they go see the amazing exhibit at DIA. So that being said, AWOL was born in Addis Ababa. And for those who don't know or need a geography refresher, Addis Ababa is the capital of Ethiopia, and it's a cosmopolitan city rich in commerce and culture and history. Erziku grew up in the Bronx with Eastern and Western culture, and he says he's really grateful for the duality because it gave him a unique vision of the world. And he says that this uniqueness is one thing that separates him from many artists. He's a multidisciplinary artist. He works in photography, film, sculpture, and installation. And he says that he's creating a new vernacular that bridges the gap between African and African-American visual culture, referencing art history, hip hop, and spirituality, amongst other subjects in his work. He received his Bachelor of Fine Arts from the Cooper Union in New York, and he received a Master of Fine Arts from Yale School of Art in New Haven, Connecticut. His work has been exhibited. We can switch to the first. There we go. His work has been exhibited at prominent institutions, including Crystal Bridges Museum of American Art, Museum of Modern Art in New York, the Studio Museum in Harlem, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Toronto, Flag Art Foundation in New York. And he brings really high concepts to commercial photography, highlighting cultural and creative leaders. He's been featured in the New Yorker, New York Magazine, GQ, and Vanity Fair. He's really well known for taking Beyonce's pregnancy photos. And as I was researching, I discovered he also took these incredibly emotional and evocative photos of Michael Brown's dad. Remember 2014, Ferguson? Yeah, they're incredible, guys. I really encourage everybody to go look those up after you see this. The photos were featured as part of a public art campaign in New York and Chicago. And that campaign also included some really poignant photos of Muslim men. Erziku is Islamic. And he said that being able to show those images on bus stops in New York, where there was so much xenophobia after 9/11, made him feel really optimistic about how far we've come as a country. And so The first image that we're looking at is Asiatic Lilies 2017. This image was used as a billboard for the Toronto show. And the image is full of symbolism. It includes his signature blend of pop art, materialism, and minimalism. And you'll see a hand coming out of the left or right corner. I don't know what it is for the viewer, but you see the hand. And they're holding a fragment of a color check card. And the darker colors you can see have been separated from the main card. You've got jagged edges, and it makes you wonder what happened. Why was this portion separated? Was it torn off? Was it thrown away? And the artist has explained that this piece of the image is part of a larger conversation that's going on in the art community about how racial bias has been built into photography. And this part of the piece evokes the long history in photography of not recognizing darker skin tones. And this not being recognized is a recurring theme for people of color. And AWOL mentions how technology and facial recognition doesn't recognize Black people. And there are examples of Black models appearing darker, lighter due to technical inabilities to capture our skin tones. Many, many, many examples of this. And pieces like AWOL's are part of a movement to democratize art by making it so people of color are recognized and normalized and accepted just like our white counterparts. You also see in this image Rubik's Cube, and that's echoing the idea and is a metaphor for the wider array of human complexions. And there are just so many layers in this piece. You've got the Asiatic Lilies, you've got the bust of Nefertiti, and that's a head nod to the fact that this was one of the world's first artistic images. The bust was found in Egypt and goes back to 1350 BCE. It's a universal symbol of Blackness. The collage also includes several other symbols of Blackness. You've got King Tut, you've got Nefertiti in the bag, you've got Bastet, who's a goddess, you've got the Sphinx. And Irziku has said that one day he wants to normalize seeing images of Blackness in prominent spaces like Times Square. He wants to create a new vernacular that lets folks know that Black art is universal. And we can go to the next image. Okay, thank you. He said that his art is a dismantling and a reconstructing. And when I saw that in the video, it made me think of this book that I'm reading right now. It's called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria? And there's this one quote in particular: prejudice is one of the inescapable consequences of living in a racist society. Cultural racism, the cultural images and messages that affirm the assumed superiority of whiteness and the assumed inferiority of people of color, is like smog in the air. Sometimes it's so thick, it's visible. Other times it's less apparent, but always, day in and day out, we are breathing it in. And in his work, Irziku, like most, if not all of the artists in this collection, they're giving us fresh air and redefining our take on certain images. And this image, which is called Untitled, is a perfect example of it. We have a lot of little micro portraits of Irziku's childhood friends, and you see that they were all rocking fades. And so in this photograph, what Irziku has done is elevated the fade to art. And the fade is a hairstyle for those who don't know. And in doing that, he's re-messaging the Black man as a creator. And this is a nod to the artistry that goes into the hairstyles of Black men. These guys are basically using their bodies as canvases. It's also a powerful example of Black men imaging, imagining, and creating their own images. To me, this photograph conveys the power of self-determination and positive self-expression.
I agree. Absolutely.
Any questions, Christine?
Not at this point. We have some hellos from the audience and letting us know, they're in Troy, Michigan, and they're excited to be here. So thank you.
Okay. Pam?
Okie dokie. Ruth Osai, born in Nigeria in 1991. She grew up in London. She is of British Nigerian heritage. As a teenager, she was given a camera by her mother, and she began taking pictures of family and friends. And then from showing those pictures around, she got noticed. So that was the beginning, and we should thank her mother, right? She has worked for designers such as Kenzo and Miu Miu, and her images have been published in Garage and W magazines. So maybe have the next slide. Okay. Ruth Osai is known for her portrait and studio photography. Her work is influenced by traditional Nigerian portraits that feature painted backdrops, special effects, and props. She works in the studio primarily using painted and printed backdrops, patterned flooring, and stages her models in poses known to the traditions found in African portraiture of those who came before her, such as artists, photographers, Seydou Keita. Nancy Barr says that this style sets her, Osai, apart from other photographers in the show. And when she works on location, I found this interesting. When she works on location, even these same elements of painted backdrops are included in the portraiture. Okay, this particular one, as you can see, is a very colorful background, painted background, and very fashionable and stylish clothing, which portray a story or tell a story, which is a part of her work, is telling the story of the Nigerians. And this particular image is image created for Miu Miu. It's a fashion design, and it's Miu Miu Babes. And it's a nod to Nollywood, which is another influence in her work. The picture on the right is a traditional African portrait, and that was taken by, I believe, yes, Seydou Netta. The next slide, please.
Pamela, before you go, could you go back just a second, Kathleen?
Sure.
I think it's extraordinary how these different colors come together and really form a tight composition. He really has a tremendous eye for color.
Yeah.
And that's what strikes. I mean, the first thing you see is the color. He's extremely talented. I'm sorry, Pamela. I'm sorry. She's extremely talented.
Yes.
Yeah.
She is. There's more to come. Hold your horses. All right. Osai is also influenced by Nollywood, the Nigerian film industry. She said, I use backdrops as a reminder of the amazing special effects and scenes you see in Nollywood films. I also love setting up a studio in someone's compound. We eat iba and soup, listen to music, and have fun. I like to get to know people first, then snap later. And that way, I can include personal touches such as props. An interesting point I found about her work, her personal and her non-editorial work, is that she says she asks the models how they want to be photographed, which for me says that she wants to hear their voice. It allows for their voice to be heard and an image created of them from their own point of view, rather than the photographer imposing their perspective on how the image should be created. Her subjects pose proudly, wearing intricate garments and ornate accessories, creating vivid images rooted in the, and I quote, unapologetic expression of self. This picture here was also created as an ad for Miu Miu magazine, and it is also a nod to Hollywood. And as we pointed out earlier, the colors, the style, the patterns, and the background, this is just beautiful. And that's a backdrop, by the way. Next slide, please. Okay, this is London, backdrop in the background, and this is a beautiful ebony complexioned model with an African, her hair is natural, African styled, and this was for the magazine Roller Coaster. She is setting, Ruth Osai is setting out to break down stereotypes about Africans, particularly Nigerians, and define and promote identities that reflect Nigerian culture through fashion and portraiture. She aims to show everyday life in Nigeria. And I conclude with this quote: I show Nigerians as they are, how naturally beautiful they are with their own dynamism, style, and sense of humor. And this one is very stylish. If you look closely, not only is it fashionable, it's a nod to upscale fashion. You see the Chanel earrings.
And Afrofuturism too.
Oh, okay. I'm not real familiar with Afrofuturism. I'll have to do some research on that, but so is Ruth Osai. I'll turn it over to Ray.
Christine, if there's no questions, I'll take.
Yes. Oh.
There's a few comments. One was that was a beautiful photograph. Someone noticed the Chanel earrings and thought that they were gorgeous. And then another viewer is referencing the Nollywood photograph,
Yes.
and said that the traditional flooring mixed with the modern fashion is an amazing commentary on new traditions.
Wow.
Ooh,
Thank
good
you.
point.
Okay, on to Donna Shrugs, who Shrugs was born in Chicago, and she says of her persistence and of the social and electronic media, if I hadn't been posting my work on multiple platforms for years, I would never have these opportunities. Every moment that I didn't give in, pack up, and move back home has been critical to my success. And successful she has been. Self-taught, Scruggs first began shooting images and posting them in 2011. Eventually, her images caught the attention of modeling agencies, and this is really fascinating. So they asked her to do test shoots of their models, and they were so overwhelmed at how well she did it. Remember, she's self-taught, that they immediately hired her, and she decided to become a photographer and make it her career.
Wow.
And interestingly, she says that it gave her a purpose. And this is a quote, when for a long time, I felt like I had nothing else to offer myself or the world. So really, for her, and fortunately for us, a shifting of her life.
Ray, that's powerful.
Isn't that powerful? Yeah, I mean, this is someone who really found herself and what her talent is, which is really rare. You know what I mean? And came out of a situation in which she just didn't have an identity or her own self-worth. So it is very powerful.
And she didn't give up. Yeah.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Can we go to the next slide, Kathleen? So, as I said, she's become very successful. Her high contrast and intimate photographs led for her to be the first Black woman photographer to have her work in the Body issue, which is a very popular issue of ESPN magazine, in which they show athletes, top-notch athletes, very tastefully nude. It's not supposed to be erotic. It's supposed to be really show the power of their bodies and the beauty of their bodies. And you can see Shrug's photo on the right that appeared in the 2018 Body issue. It's of the American track and field star, Tori Bowie. And the inclusion of her photo series in that issue really put her on the map. Indeed, on the left, is her photo of rapper and record producer Travis Scott, who appeared on the cover of the January 2019 issue of Rolling Stone magazine. She was the first Black photographer, male or female, to have her work on the cover of the Rolling Stone. Next slide, please.
That's impressive.
It is impressive. Her images often depict deep, rich textured skin tone models and celebrities. This photo is of a series of photos that Shrugs took of model and musician Donna Shrug. This series was so popular that it trended on Twitter. Next slide, please. Her strong use of lights and darks is inspired by photographers of the Kamwina workshop of the 1960s and 70s. Kamwina means in Kenyan, coming together, which I thought was very interesting. Those artists had signature black and white photos, and they explored expanded notions of darkness in photographs, culture, and people. And an example of their photos is on the right. It's called For Men, and it's in the DIA's collection. And you can see the photographer's use of dramatic light and the remarkable ability to capture contrast of black skin. And this was remarkable, particularly in the 60s and 70s, because film at the time, indeed photography technology generally, as Tana was saying with the first photo that she toured, it was all geared toward capturing white-complected people. Shrug's photo, the one on the left, similarly masters resolution of strong contrast of lights and darks. Notice how she captures the highlights of light on various parts of the model's face.
Gorgeous.
With the contrast of the blue, faded shirt that's swooping down. Next slide, please. Thank you. Shrugs published this photo. Whoops, one too many. Can you go back, Kathleen? There you go. Shrugs published this photo in one of the issues of her online magazine called Shrugs. Launched in 2016, Shrugs initially focused exclusively on the strength and vulnerability of the male form. The issue was meant to be a visual diary of male images, alongside essays that explored how she perceived masculinity, depression, family, racism, and sexism. Now we can go to that next slide. This is an amazing photo. This photo that Shrugs posted on Instagram in February 2017 is a wonderful example of her using strong contrast to highlight the deep, rich textures of skin of African and African American men. The photo is of the African supermodel, George Okini. Shrugs uses light to highlight the model's left shoulder and the left side of his face. When viewing this photo in person at the museum, you can really see Shrugs' amazing technical ability to show textures and tones in great detail. It's interesting. She uses gold jewelry, which she strategically places to create the composition to have strong contrast and perhaps to be expressive. Tana and Pam, this photo, it has a name. The name is George Bathed in Gold. And then he has the placement of the model's hand partially covering, his face with the gold jewelry and the gold fingernail polish. And it appears to be communicating something. I don't know if you have a personal interpretation of this, but it does. There's a messaging that is clearly going on with respect to this particular photo that he has not revealed.
Well, what came to me was,
Oh, absolutely. Pam.
Okay. What came to me was maybe embracing the face, embracing his skin. His skin is actually the gold, not the gold on his fingers or his fingernails, but actually his skin is the real gold, the real value.
Ooh, I like that. His black
and that would be
skin, the
consistent.
real gold. I like that, Pam.
And that
That's
would
what
be
came to
consistent
me.
with the photos I've seen of Shrugs. They're very positive images. you
This is
know, so
beautiful.
that would be consistent, at least with the portfolio of photos that I have seen. I do think it's interesting. You know, it's in I have a quote that she talks about, you know, having male models, photographing male models. Quote, the fact that I'm a Black woman capturing Black men is very important to me because often Black people and Black narratives are captured by white people, sometimes through cultural venturing initiatives or to depict poverty, porn, or to fetishize us. End of quote. Let's go to the next quote. Next slide, please.
I love this.
This is one of my favorite photos in the entire exhibit.
Yeah.
This photo of African-American model Niaur Dig was for the Chromat Swim Company's advertising campaign. Chromat Swim is known for making swimsuits for different body types. In its article about the DIA's exhibition, the magazine, online magazine, the Detroit Art Review, expresses that this photo, quote, is one of the most captivating images in a show full of them. The lean, striking American model, Niaur Dig, wears a one-piece swimsuit that virtually disappears against her skin in the blinding desert glare. She appears to be 1/3 of the way in a cartwheel, both hands planted in the sand and one leg starting its aerial rotation. The odd arch pose is echoed by the sharp shadow beneath. Set against the sun-baked dunes, the composition reads more like contemporary sculpture than a fashion shoot. And I think that really very much captures this particular photo. It does look like sculpture. It
That's
is so beautiful and intriguing composition.
I agree.
Sculpture of joy and playfulness.
Yeah, again, another positive imagery.
Yeah.
Imagery, yeah. Christina, any questions?
Comment on how one of the viewers really loves the way the photographer combines textures, skin textures with fabric textures, and that it really is amazing, you know, to look at. And then the same viewer, you guys were commenting on George, and her comment was "value is the man."
You know what? And that occurred to me too. That was maybe a message about wealth. You know, but again, the artist hasn't revealed her intentions. Okay, Tana.
All right, guys. Quill Lemons. This is our next artist. Born in Philadelphia, he's a photographer who studied journalism at the New School in New York. In 2021, he became the youngest person to photograph the lead image used on the cover of Vanity Fair. He's photographed Spike Lee, Billie Eilish, which was the lead image, and Rihanna's Savage X Fenty collection, among many, many others. He describes himself as a New York-based photographer with a distinct visual language that interrogates ideas around masculinity, family, queerness, race, and beauty. He's been quoted as saying, we can go to the next image, Kathleen. There we go. He's been quoted as saying, he feels like masculinity is a sort of prison. You can be masculine and gay, or feminine and straight. Now we have more space to play. He's a big champion of cell phone as a medium for photography and has talked about how iPhones have democratized photography. Glitter Boy, which is what we're looking at right now, this is one of the images in that series, was born out of Quill's alter ego. And he says that he has 6 alter egos. The series is meant to be a counter to the hypermasculinity in our Black community. In this series, we see on the cheeks in this image, men wearing makeup in front of a pink background. And I want to pause for a second to talk about the pink background. I'm not sure if you were here last week. If you weren't, I encourage you to go back and look at the video because Pam talked about pink as being the color of rebellion and saying that for forever it was associated with femininity. But now younger artists are looking at pink and they're wearing pink and they're saying that color doesn't have to have a gender associated with it. And in wearing the color pink, that's an act of rebellion. And in utilizing it in backdrops, that's also an act of rebellion. So she articulates it much better than I did. So Quill says in an interview in Allure that makeup doesn't necessarily have an energy. It's just products, and society gives it that gendering. It's weird. Nothing says it's for boys or for girls. We just put those labels on it. And the idea of his series is to depict young Black men just owning who they are and being themselves. This is all his quote, if I didn't make that clear. The most obvious way he embodies his alter ego on a daily basis is by wearing swaths of glitter across his cheekbones. One day it's teal, tomorrow it could be holographic silver, gold, or purple. He says he tries to wear it wherever he goes, whenever he can. And the models in this series explore the shifting notions of gender as it relates to the Black community. The series is very autobiographical, and there's a lot of emphasis on home and family. All of these models are friends of his. We can go to the next image. And you'll note this model is also wearing glitter in a different place. He's also different complexion. Quill has gotten flack from those who say that real men aren't men anymore. And when he does, he reminds folks that in the 70s, men wore bell bottoms. He says that there's a privilege that comes along with being white when it comes to self-expression, sexuality, and fluidity. He says Black men really don't have that. They're policed with what they can and cannot do. So this project, Glitter, was to bring light to boys that get overlooked. We can go to the next image.
Before you go to the next image,
sorry.
I wanted to ask, because I'm not really sure, does he have lipstick on as well? This image here?
I'm not sure. And I'm not sure. He might. He very well might. Quill likes to play. So
that would set up the picture. Yeah, that would set up the picture if he didn't included that, because it is a striking part of the photo.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about his quote about makeup not being
right, exactly
for males.
And the whole series is about, making up the face. So yeah, that would make a lot of sense.
Excuse me.
We can go to the next.
Thank you.
Next image. Okay. Quill says you've got all these stereotypes of Black men as thugs, basketball players, rappers. Those are the only ways you can shine as a Black man, like that play on words, shine, glitter. In showing Black men with different complexions, as we've seen in these 3 photographs, and different expressions, as we've also seen, the artist says his goal is to kick off some revolution, showing that you literally can be whatever. And that's Quill Lemons. He's got a lot of range too. I just focused on the glitter series, but he also has these incredible family portraits. Here, the images, you've got a range. You can get a sense of it in the light that he uses. From left to right, you see darker. The central photograph is overexposed. And then you see the shadows in the lower portion in the very right image. That he's consistent with range and subject matter and in depiction of the models. So I would encourage you to look at his other work beyond Glitter, but Glitter with the messaging behind it really spoke to me as I was preparing for the exhibit. Does anybody have any questions?
There's a comment. We have an African-American sculptor who we had many works. Actually, we have one on display right now. Her name is Elizabeth Catlett. And the viewer said that many of these photographs remind her of Elizabeth Catlett's work.
Oh.
So,
Okay, yeah. I can see that. Great observation.
Pam?
Pamela. All right, Pamela's up. Micaiah Carter. I fell in love with this guy too. I know I say that about each one, but I fell in love with him. Born in Apple Valley, California in 1995. Now, I want to point out this interesting observation. Nancy Barr said his place of birth is an important observation to note because it dispels the idea that Black people only live in large, predominantly Black urban areas. Mackay's family is originally from Kentucky and Oklahoma, and I think the percentage of Black people in those states is like 7 to 8%. He studied photography at the New School in New York. He said, Blackness can get pigeonholed into a one-dimensional viewpoint, but in reality, it is, I love this, it is as diverse as the galaxies in the universe. I love that. Can we move
I
on
do too.
to the next slide, please? There are a multitude of narratives, images, stories, and lifestyles that define Black people and Black life experience. His work is influenced primarily by his family and his family legacy. And speaking of the Black image, the diversity of Black image and lifestyle, this particular picture, which was created for L'Officiel, I think that's how you pronounce it, not sure. Official magazine shows the style of Black men, not just sweatshirts or droopy pants or, ratty clothes, but style in this one. Okay, can we move to the next image, please? Oh, I'm sorry, go back one. Let's stick with the 3-man. His work is influenced primarily by his family and his family legacy, especially his father, Andrew Carter. The elder Mr. Carter documented his experience in the Air Force during the 1970s. The younger Carter, the younger Carter's work pays homage to his father and explores what it was like to be 20 in the 70s, a time of radical change, the Black Power movement, the Black is Beautiful music movement, and disco. Using archival photos, he recreates images that resonate with him in his own style, and that may include the same or similar colors, clothing, and poses seen in the original photographs of his father. He uses the past as a compass while simultaneously shooting new trajectories. Carter said, I want to break barriers of what Blackness is and make it feel like we're people and not a trend. Can we move to Kathleen, can you move 2 slides ahead, please? Yeah. His images embrace what Amiri Baraka called the Black aesthetic to defy European codes of beauty. Carter's pictures pay homage to the myriad Black Power styles of dress and today's street style, an outgrowth of hip hop culture. He often shows Black people in repose and includes symbols of the 70s, such as the afro, the Black Power fist bump, and the Black Power fist bump are recreated in this image. And I have wondered if he is initiating a conversation of what it's like to be 20 today. In this particular picture, Pyre Moss, which was created for High Snobity magazine. It was published in that.
High Snobity?
Is that what it's supposed to be?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. High
know.
Snobity. And I have my glasses on, so no excuse. High Snobity magazine. This particular image shows a blend of the 70s with the turtleneck, the jacket, but it also is a nod to today, the afro with the fade and the afro pick in his hair. Okay, we can go back one, I believe, Kathleen. Carter said, I want to create images that compel Black stories and cultures, stereotypes, and create moods and environments that are almost unworldly within the context of Blackness. My translation is showing Black people doing everyday things just like other people, living and enjoying life. This particular picture, Adeline in Barrettes, 2018, was created for Vogue magazine. It is also the cover of a CD, an album, and a book. But the barrettes in the Black community are often decorative and the added special touch to hairstyles. And this particular artist, Adeline, is actually a singer-songwriter. She uses in a lot of images barrettes as almost as a crown, and I thought that's what this image is about too, adorning the hair. And I think, is that the last slide for me? Okay, and this one shows more like, it feels more like a snapshot or a Polaroid from the 70s. Again, bending the idea of what Black men are or how they are defined. His hair is being curled, which is a throwback to both the 70s. It's a throwback to the 70s, where Black men often, like James Brown, wore their hair in a bouffant kind of style. And Black men today not being limited in how they can style their own hair. I'll conclude with this. I think Carter's images is a way he links to and honors his father's legacy and experiences in the past while creating a legacy for future generations of Carters and Micaiah Carter fans. That's it. Hi, snobbery. What was it?
I think it's high snobbity.
Hi, snobbity.
It's a fun one. It's a fun one.
Yes, a tongue twister too. But thanks. Oh, and that concludes my presentation.
Nice job.
Are there any questions or comments, Christine?
No, we're actually caught up. Thank you. That was a great group of photographs, Pamela. Really enjoyed that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take it away, Ray.
Yeah, thank you. So our next image maker is Rene Medrano, who was born in the Bronx, New York. Nancy Barr, that Pamela referenced, who's the DIA's curator of photography, particularly likes this selfie of the artist. Medrano earned her BFA at Parsons, the New York School, in 2014, and immediately became recognized as an image maker interested in the beauty and vagaries of real-life circumstances. About her work, Medrano appropriately states, quote, "I never try and make a perfect picture. I just try to photograph what I see around me." End of quote. Let's go to the next slide, please. You can see, Pam and Tana, this rawness to her photos in these two examples. They appear spontaneous and authentic, but they're both staged. Next slide, please. Medrano has been inspired by the work of Liz Johnson Autor, a Ghanaian Russian photographer based in London who documents the lives of Black people around the world. Here we have two examples of her photos. The one on the left is from London, and the one on the right is from Zimbabwe. You can see here that Arturo's photos have this sense of candidness, in contrast with the typical staged photographs. Next slide, please. Thank you. Medrano explains that her background also influenced this raw style that she has. Quote, I carried this very scenic backstory growing up in the Bronx. I tried to portray that in my images, end of quote. And you can really see the evocative rawness and psychological intensity of her documentary style images in these two staged photos. Medrano describes her method to achieve these qualities as follows. I don't really give that much direction when I'm on the set. I just kind of let it play out. I honestly try and capture moments within the time that I have with my subject, moments that mean something to me. End of quote. And I think she does a wonderful job of doing that.
She does a great job of capturing the melting pot that is the Bronx, you know? You can see a nice mixture of ethnicity, Black, Hispanic in these pictures. It's
Yeah,
just.
you're right. It's that scenic backstory, as she says.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a special skill that she can style these images and make them look so natural and authentic, like you just walked into the scene and took a snapshot.
Exactly. It's almost as though that she just happened upon these people in this setting and had her camera with her.
Mm-hmm.
It's an interesting technique.
She's
This
good.
evocative raw style that we were talking about really captured the attention of high fashion, interestingly, and celebrities, particularly celebrities who are cultural influencers. Could we go to the next slide, please? So, speaking of high fashion, these photos were for her Gucci Love Story series that were to promote Gucci fashion. While both are highly stylized, there's a sense of sort of candidness and maybe genuineness for two reasons primarily. First, the settings. These aren't studios, they're not stages with colorful backgrounds and mysterious backgrounds. Instead, the models appear to be in nice but not glamorous apartments. Second, the models are not looking at the camera. They're not obviously posing to show off the clothes. There's this casualness to their posture. Next slide, please. As for celebrities, Medrano is known for revealing certain aspects, interior aspects of the personas of people. This photo is for the cover of Office magazine of the singer, songwriter, and actress, is it Solange?
You got it. Good job.
Yeah, Solange Knowles, who is Beyonce's sister. Medrano captures Knowles in an interesting posture that is a pose, but not a spontaneous quality. Our curator, Nancy Barr, notes that it's interesting that Medrano is able to tab these famous persons, such a famous person, being willing to pose in this awkward-looking position and really be a part of her informal style of photos. Her photos and these kinds of photos really push the boundaries of what a fashion photo can be. Next slide, please. So this is actually an extremely famous photo in Instagram. It's of the famous and somewhat outrageous fashion model and actress Slick Woods. Woods is known for her bald head, gap teeth, and her tattoos. Woods is part of the social media modeling or Instagirl movement, as she has many, many followers. Kanye West is credited with helping launch Woods' career, who has most notably modeled for Rihanna's makeup brand, Fenty Beauty. But she also has appeared in the American and the international editions of Vogue. Woods asked Medrano to take these photos of her pregnant for her Instagram account. Medrano, I really think, captures her in an extremely interesting moment. A person who is generally not revealing of her inner self, Medrano really shows a vulnerability and a reflective quality of her subject matters. That rawness, that staying with the figure until she finds the right moment, for me, very much captured the right moment. Can we go to the next slide? As mentioned in the beginning, some Detroit area and up-and-coming artists are part of the exhibition. Nancy Barr included them. They're toward the end as you go through. They're toward the end of the passageway that you go through, the tour that you go through. And this particular image maker, Detroit-based image maker, is Corey Turner. He primarily documents Detroit trends and cultural movements. In fact, he's been involved in the Documenting Detroit program of the nonprofit organization called Facing Change, Documenting America, which is in collaboration with the Library of Congress. Next slide, please. Turner began shooting photos of men in hats as an undergrad at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. He thought that it was an overlooked aspect of fashion, particularly Black men fashion. The legendary Harry the Hatter store in Detroit was a natural place for him to find images. This photo is from a series that he began to create in 2018 as a tribute to the Harry the Hatter store. Christine, are there any questions?
No questions, but we sure have a lot of viewers today. So good
Well,
job,
that's terrific.
everybody.
Well, yeah, that's terrific. I'm very happy people turned in to see this wonderful exhibition. Tana and Pamela, it was a pleasure. Next week on Thursdays at the museum is a film, Daughter of the Dust. I understand it's highly interesting, and it's about the Black immigration to the North. So Sharon, who was our first presenter, says she saw it many years ago, and she thought it was very interesting. The cinematography was beautiful, but the story was very compelling. But I would also like to thank Ian Rebnicki, our producer, and our other producer, Kathleen McBroom, who has the sharp photo pointing on the button to move the photos along. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
Yes, thanks, guys.
So everybody have a pleasant day and take care.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.